Ready? Okay, everybody, thank you very much for joining us. This is the absolute highlight of the day. Very excited to be able to announce the esteemed panel here. In no particular order, because I'm going to go from all the way over to closest. We have got Robby Moss, and who will introduce himself. A little bit about yourself, Robby.
Robby Moss. I'm with Vuzix Corporation, head of business development for our Moviynt division, which focuses on warehousing and logistics.
Amazing, thank you. And we've got Nick Silicato.
Nice. President, founder, Centric Packaging, custom packaging supplies, end-of-the-line packaging equipment.
We've got Brian Kirst.
Brian Kirst, Chief Operating Officer, SnapFulfil.
And we've got Sriram.
Yeah, all right. My name is Sriram. I'm the CEO for Addverb Americas. We build robots. I'm just going to pause there and hopefully share more as we go through this.
Amazing. Amazing. And of course, we have the lovely Shannan.
Hello, everyone. Do you want to say anything else, or do you want me to go ahead?
No, I feel like I've definitely said enough.
Okay, excellent. So thank you all for being here today. We couldn't have done this show today without you. It was a tremendous success, and thank you for being here. And of course, thank you to all the panelists that are here today as well. So when I started thinking about this panel and what our discussion is, we're going to talk today about the current and future state of supply chain. And when I think about that, so I've been in the industry now for 25 years. When people used to ask me, Shannan, what do you do? And I said supply chain, they would not know at all what that meant. And then COVID hit, right? And then everyone thought that they knew what it meant. So typically, when you talk about supply chain now, people think about racking, they think about automation, they think about boxes, they think about data. But one thing that sometimes we don't always put to the forefront of our mind is the people, right? So when I think about it and I think about the people, you think about the person that's at their house waiting for that medical device for their family member. Or you think about the warehouse that's waiting for their product to get there so that they can keep their doors open. Or what about the people that are working alongside the automation that's out there today? So really, the story is about the human connection and how it's powered by the innovation. And that's really why we are here today, to talk about that. But the one thing that I wanted to stress is that we need to ensure that the technology that we're using is actually serving the people who are depending on it. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and get started with our amazing panel. The first topic that we're going to talk a little bit about today is automation and technology innovation. And each and every one of these people come from a little bit of a different sector within that realm. So they'll have a little bit of a different perspective on it, but I think today you'll get some really great information. So Sriram, I'm going to start with you. And the question is, what are some of the most impactful technologies that your organization is implementing, and what kind of measurable results are you seeing because of that?
Yeah, like I said in my intro, we build robots, largely, solving problems within the four walls of the warehouse, but also in the factories recently. The company was formed with the notion of building a fixed and flexible automation. What we mean by that is fixed automation has been around for a while. We've seen ASRS cranes, we've seen racking, to your point. They're generally bolted on the ground, and they solve problems at height, they solve at a speed, they're pretty reliable. In the early 2000s, we had the rise of AMRs with Kiva technologies coming into the fore. Amazon bought them soon after. And then the last probably decade or so, we are just seeing everyone talk about AMRs and AGVs, which kind of gave rise to what we call flexible automation. We believe the warehouses of the future, and with us kind of being in the forefront of this with partners like yourself, and Element Logic, I think the world will move towards this concoction of fixed and flexible automation coming together. Fixed gives you more speed, more reliability. It's able to go vertical. Granted, it's bolted on the ground. It's not that flexible or movable, but that's what flexible automation gives you. The AMRs, AGVs give you that modularity, scalability, They give you flexibility to move from one facility to the other. But you got to have the best of both worlds coming together to eventually solve a problem inside the warehouse. You need a bit of speed, but you also need flexibility. You also need that ability to change the business needs. You spoke about COVID. I'm speaking about tariff right now. The changes are so massive, the macroeconomic changes. So as a supply chain professional, you want to be having that good amalgamation of both technologies so you get the best of both worlds. So that's where we are focused as a company. We've built shuttles, we have built cranes, we have built AMRs, HVs, but we also have a very robust warehouse execution software that kind of binds all of these things together. And then it talks to WMSs, it talks to OMSs up the chain to solve problems, largely labor efficiency, space, but also, sometimes it's just about bringing change in an organization. And that's a big part of what we love to do. I think once you go live, people think you switch on a button and automation gives you results. They don't. They take time, and it's a journey. And that journey is a big part of what we focus on quite a bit. So that's our 2 cents on that.
Excellent. Very well said. Brian, I know you come from a little bit of a different perspective when that question is asked. So can you answer it from your side?
Robots are a tough act to follow. So I think that's the exciting stuff. That is some great stuff. But it's automation is obviously taking the center in most warehouse operations. And I would agree, coming from the software side, so SnapFulfil is a WMS, but we also orchestrate automation within the warehouse. And so you have to take a practical approach to that. So one of the things we've brought to our customers is that ability to orchestrate automation. So as automation moves up on the roadmap for most operations, especially in that mid-market, it's become more accessible, barriers of entry are lowering. That need to orchestrate and integrate the automation in an effective way to solve those problems and work seamlessly with whatever type of automation our customers are implementing. That's what we've been focused on this past year, and we'll continue to look at that as we go forward.
Excellent. And then Robby, we have yet another perspective because your technology is a little bit different and all of that. So maybe tell us just a little bit about that, and then if you could answer the question.
Yeah, so
as
with
well.
Vuzix, we make smart glasses, so heads-up displays and glasses form factor smart glasses. And so going back to your original, Shannan, your statement at the beginning, we are focused on augmenting the human in the loop there. So the human that's working on the shop floor or the warehouse floor and giving them the ability to do some things that being hands-free, eyes up. But we also want to be integrated into what Brian and Sriram are doing as far as taking the data and being able to interact with the automation as it's happening.
Excellent. Very good. So there's obviously some barriers when we talk about all this. So the question is, and I'll open this up to whoever wants to answer it. I know there's a few of you that this will pertain to. What do you see as the biggest barriers to widespread automation adoption across the logistics and supply chain industry?
I'll steal it from a packaging perspective.
Okay, excellent.
I think we have the hardest job from a packaging nuance perspective, right? Because we need that flexible automation. We have the auto boxing systems and the auto bagging systems and the palletizers, but it all has to be very flexible to fit the product that's actually being shipped, right? So we actually need the ability for that to be very, very flexible and to fit the customer's needs. So that's our biggest challenge on the packaging front. If you're shipping champagne flutes, that beautiful bottle of Dom Perignon that Seth popped earlier, those, I'm sure you drank some crystal.
I didn't pay for it.
Okay, good. So shipping those, the champagne or the flutes that you're going to drink that champagne out of, it's going to be a totally different ballgame than if you're shipping Tom's fancy sneakers over here. So there's very different nuances that go into that, and placing automation into the end of the line packaging solution is really difficult for us at Centric to make sure that we're putting the right solution in place to fit the wide span of everything that's being shipped out of that warehouse.
Yeah, and so the software, that barrier is really making sure that those decisions and that automation, that's a seamless operation and it's not too much human interaction to make those decisions. So again, I would go, one of the barriers is having the right solution in place, the right integrations in place, and the right automation that fits the operation, that you're not just making a decision in a silo and those automations aren't siloed within the operation. we're seeing more and more, it's multiple automations that are creating the solution. It's not one single solution. So having good partners, good integrations really works to removing that barrier is key.
Yeah, I think integration. I think you hit the buzzword. I think that's the most important thing. For someone who implements robotic systems, I think where we see a lot of challenges is, there's already an existing ecosystem of technologies that is running the warehouse, running your supply chain, running your ERP. All of those things have to start to then talking to the robot, to the smart glasses, to the packaging machines, to the WMSs. So I think we got to live in a more collaborative world. That's what we strongly believe in, and I think everyone needs to talk to each other, and that's the only way we can grow as an industry. And I think the other thing I feel is a big barrier is data sanity. I feel like we've been in enough engagements where we go and ask the customer a bunch of questions, and they're like, "Oh, no one's even I don't know the answers to these questions. So you're forcing me to look inward in terms of how my business is running." And I think that's where we have seen a lot of automation projects succeed and fail. Because if you don't get that data right, you invest into a design, and either you're under designing or over designing. At the end of the day, you're not getting the ROI that you wanted in the first place. So I think data and just having that consciousness about what that data is, how your business runs, I think is the biggest barrier.
Excellent.
Shannan, I'll
Yes.
just add in on our side, because we have the human worker, the person that's doing the work in the process. Our big thing is still change management. So the ability to get people comfortable with wearing something like smart glasses, and we're going to see that grow as people are using things like Meta Ray-Bans in the consumer world, and people get more comfortable with the technology. But just change management and really being flexible on the user experience, which we're great at. We're able to iterate and allow people to get comfortable, build the process or the workflow to their level of comfort, and still achieve the work.
Excellent. Thank you. Now we're going to talk a little bit more. I started talking about the people, and that's near and dear to my heart, because often that's what customers are afraid of. They think that you're trying to replace the people, and that is by no means anything that's ever happening. We're upskilling and oftentimes utilizing them. And what person doesn't want to go into a warehouse and work alongside their technology and robots? I mean, it's so much more fun if you go out and you interview these people that are working alongside this automation. Studies have proven that they're like 98% more happy than they were when they were doing all of this manual labor on their own. So one of the things that we talk about is what strategies have proven effective for building the skills gap between traditional logistics roles and technology-driven operations. So Brian, I'm going to start with you on that one, and then Nick after him, please.
Yeah, so for our solution, it's extremely robust, and there's a lot of complexity in it. So you can configure our WMS to do a lot of things within the warehouse, but the key to adoption and that change management that you brought up is simplifying it for the user. So taking all that complexity and translating it into a simple task validation so that a user can pick up an RF device or interact with the system through a UI, and it's intuitive, it's easy to pick up, it's easy to understand, it's easy to find the data that you need. That increases adoption for us and makes that whole deployment and adoption and then scale much easier.
Yeah, then from our perspective, again, back to the nuance of packaging, the wearables from Vuzix. I am not the sharpest tool in the shed, and did a demo for Vuzix today and got it in like the third try. So it is very user friendly. The adaptability of solutions like that are huge from a packaging perspective, because it's going to reduce the training time. It will make the packer much more efficient, and it will increase the quality of the outbound package so much more. So, not even from a wearables piece, but exoskeletons and cobots and things like that on the packaging side, when you can take someone and either make them more efficient or make their job more ergonomic overall, they're going to have a much better day-to-day experience. You're not going to have so much changeover in the warehouse. One of the hardest things that we run into is just people, especially right now, we're November 13th today. It's full on peak season. Everyone's scrambling to get orders out the door, and Black Friday is upon us. So hiring enough packers to fill those pack stations to keep up with the current demand is a nightmare for all of our customers. So if we can eliminate some of the need for that or make those packers more efficient, then by all means, let's go for it. That's music to our customers' ears.
Excellent. And Sriram, one of the questions that I had for you was, how can companies foster a culture that embraces innovation while still supporting their existing warehouse?
Yeah, I think maybe just follow on to the question earlier as well. I think just keeping people in the center of everything is important. I mean, often people think robots are going to replace people. It's not. I think it's just going to enable them, which is why we believe in the core concept of human-robot collaboration. I think the world will move towards this, and I think the more we start accepting that reality, the faster we can get. And I think we often underestimate how much the people on the shop floor need technology. I think I've been in enough conversations. That's the best part of my job. When I go into the warehouse, I talk to the pickers, I talk to the warehouse staff, and they're like, "We need this. Don't worry about us. We just don't want to be walking miles. We don't want to be lifting stuff. We want to be doing things that are a little bit more. There needs to be a work-life balance, right? There isn't a lot of work-life balance. I mean, we all talk about it on a daily basis, but imagine the people who are working on the shop floor. Plus, I also feel we're going to be, hiring people who are going to be in their 20s in warehouses in the next 10 to 15 years. These people are Gen Z, right? They are people who are ordering on Uber. They're on Instagram Reels. That's how easy and accessible they need their software to be. And then you walk into the factory and warehouses, and you have these big looking HMIs that are not intuitive enough. They don't have capacitive touch. You don't want to be working in that. So I think upskilling is very important. And I think the decision makers up the chain who are making and writing these big checks have to keep them in the center of everything. So I think making sure that people are coached well enough to embrace this technology is going to be big. And I think that's how we can find the right balance of, moving away from a traditionally approached warehouses to more digitally approached warehouses. So that's my 2 cents on that.
Excellent. The next topic is a little bit more near and dear to Nick's heart. We're going to talk a little bit about sustainability and supply chain responsibility. So with that, Nick, how can packaging automation and data-driven decision-making contribute to reducing that environmental impact?
Sure. So, good question. Thank you. Thanks for making it packaging focused. So on the front end of the line, we have auto boxing solutions, auto bagging solutions, things that are right sizing the packaging. From a sustainability perspective, that's really where everyone immediately goes. What we actually see is that returns and damages are more of a driver of the sustainable goals not being hit on a year in, year out basis. So again, that goes back to making sure that product is packaged the correct way. Is that champagne flute wrapped in the right bubble wrap? Is it, are those sneakers wrapped in the right polymiller to make sure they're not going to get wet in transit? So that's what we really need to focus on. It's a multi-pronged approach where you can right size that packaging and you can make sure everything is done on a great basis for the product. But if you're not getting that product to your customers in one piece or it's being returned, then you're automatically doubling or tripling the packaging supplies that are used to ship that back and forth, plus emissions on the shipping trucks, plus everything that goes throughout that, the buzzword of supply chain that we're all kind of thinking about right now. There's a lot of other factors that go into that from a sustainability perspective that can impact a company not hitting their sustainability goals on any given year.
Excellent, thank you for that. The next topic that we'll talk a little bit about is the future supply chain landscape. So with that, there's risk and opportunities that so this is for anyone on the panel that wants to answer this. So what risk and opportunities do you foresee as supply chain becomes increasingly more digital and interconnected? Ryan, I think you had a thought on this one earlier when we spoke.
Maybe. Well, look, I think, AI plays a huge role here, but also
It took us
data.
40 minutes to get to that word.
I know.
Yeah.
I'm surprised we didn't lead with it.
I said no buzzword.
Yeah, well, I'm not even going to talk about it. How about that? So AI plays a role, but I think the data and accessibility to the data, giving operators the ability to quickly make decisions, analyze data, whether you're leveraging AI or BI tools, existing BI tools. I think that's a real opportunity that for a while was an add-on or an upcharge, but is being demanded by most operations now. They want access to their data. They want to be able to analyze that data, but more so giving operators the tools to make very quick decisions with the data that's available. So the more you can make that accessible to the customer and the operator, it's a huge opportunity right now. It's one that, along with integration, making that data available to our customers is a big push for us this year.
I'll also say cybersecurity. I think it's kind of interconnected to data, but I think the world of collaborative digital supply chain will have a lot of data spread across different places. How do you make sure that all of that data is secure? I mean, we still live in a world where, we had many instances of late where airports are crashing because one small code going down, probably the entire network goes down. So I think that's going to be the biggest risk. And I feel flexibility is still, I know we all talk about it, but flexible supply chain is still, some ways to go, because the more integrated all of this becomes, one small, problem and the entire network falls down. So it's too many single point of failures is my biggest risk. So I think we got to find a way to make it more redundant in terms of that entire system. So I definitely see cybersecurity as something that we all need to focus a lot on.
Agreed.
I'll throw in two buzzwords because I can't get around them. AI. So going back to AI, for us, AI at the edge, the ability to allow the worker to use AI on their device and not necessarily be connected to some back end. That's where we see it going. That's a huge opportunity, but it's also a risk because of the data aspect and everything. And then the integration debt that's out there, where you have systems that are very difficult to connect to. And so we're working through some of that ourselves, where we're connecting to homegrown WMS systems and things like that. But I do think AI and orchestration, and then I'll throw a word that's not a buzzword because nobody's thinking about it, but perception. So for us, using the glasses or the heads-up display and using the camera, the ability to take that data in and then analyze that so the worker can do his own thing there on the floor. And the thing we like to say is we want to get out of the way of the work. So we want to just give them enough data when they're doing the work, accomplishing their task, and get that complete, but not get in the way.
Excellent, thank you. I know that there are going to be a couple of questions from the audience, so I want to wrap this up, but I have a final question for each and every one on the panel, and I'd like you to take your time and really think about this and give us all from your perspective. So what I'd like to know is I'd like you to really summarize what you feel the future of supply chain is from your perspective and your world that you're living in. So do we want to, I'll let whoever's most comfortable to start first.
I'll take a stab at it, and then really the future for my perspective, we're very focused in the warehouse. So I think you nailed it on the cybersecurity. Resiliency is probably the buzzword we missed, right? So you need a resilient infrastructure that is going to be flexible and adaptable to the changes. I think dealing with the labor scarcity issues as warehouses move closer to the consumer, that's creating labor scarcity challenges. So it's not even around upskilling and Gen Z workers. It's actually not having available labor to fill these warehouse roles. So the technology needs to be flexible, adaptable, and resilient, and support a network seamlessly with integration and orchestration. That's really where the future for us in the WMS space, and from a SnapFulfil perspective, that's what we're looking at for the next year.
Thank you for that, Brian.
You want to go next?
No, please.
I was going to say adaptive, but I think you stole my word.
I saw your notes.
But I'll probably pivot that to also the collaborative, I guess. I think this show is a great example of that. Shout out to Element Logic team for pulling this together. It's fantastic. Just to see, a number of different players coming together and solving essentially problems for the customers out there is just the way to go. I really feel supply chain automation is an industry that lacks that collaboration. I think we need to live in a world where that collaboration becomes the norm and not an exception, because that's how I've seen automotive industry grow to where it has grown. That's how we see e-commerce growing to where it has grown, right? I mean, people who compete with Amazon are also collaborating with Amazon, right? So I don't see any reason why manufacturers, integrators, WMS providers, all coming together to solve that problem. And that's just one realm of it. But I think on the whole supply chain, if it can get a lot more collaborative than what it is, I think together as an ecosystem, we'll be a much stronger place than ever.
And to that point, I think when folks across the entire supply chain can collaborate with each other, it also becomes more sustainable. So that's the buzzword for packaging right now. So we want that. I just touched on it before, but everyone's focused on sustainability. We actually have laws being put in place in the western part of the country right now, the EPR laws that are making everyone kind of take responsibility for the materials that they're putting out into the world right now, which is wonderful from an environmental impact standpoint. But we're not able to get to that sustainable warehouse if we're not collaborating with everybody, all the other parties involved inside of the four walls of that warehouse. So that's why the element integrators and toot my own horn here, the guys like Centric Packaging that can bring lots of different vendors and partners together to make sure that we're putting the right sustainable, ergonomic, efficient package together for end users is really important. I think from my perspective, sustainability is going to be the buzz of 2026.
I'll just add on to my previous answer because it's still about AI for us. I think that's on our roadmap for the next year to take it further because we're using some machine learning, but we're going to get more into other types of AI. And I do think you'll see, maybe not in 2026, but very soon, you'll just see a what I'll call like a warehouse coach on a wearable with every worker. And it's going to help them do their job, but it's also going to tell everybody else what they're doing too. And it may give them advice as they're going through their work. So we got to figure that out. And I think some of the technology that we're going to be looking at, I mean, we're looking at small language models and things like that to get just on the device, again, so you're not connected. You're not limited by the latency of that connection, right? So I think that's where in the next year to 2 years, you're going to see all those things happen.
Excellent, thank you. Everyone gave amazing answers, and I knew that they'd all be a little bit different, which makes this panel so exciting, right? Because we've got people from just a little bit of a different array of every industry within supply chain. I know that we've got some amazing audience members, and I was told that there's a couple of questions out there, and we've got a great panel, so take the opportunity and let's ask a couple of questions. John, I'm going to go with you in the back there first.
Yeah, thank you, Shannan. One question I had for the panel is, what does scalability look like in practice? And maybe more specific, how would small operations scale their automation investments into larger, how do they future-proof their investments, if you will?
So from my perspective, scalability for our customers is allowing them the ability to either grow their operations through additional sites, more square footage, or by deploying automation and us not being a barrier to that. So allowing that operation to scale, whether it's a new device, new automation, new packaging solution, and being able to be a partner in that rather than a barrier to allowing that to happen. So it's really important that when we enter a new customer, that we have that roadmap for them so that they know we're going to be a partner. We're not going to be a barrier for their ability to scale their operation, whether it's through growth or through efficiency and adding in automation and other solutions.
I think for me, scalability and flexibility, I think the North Star of that, unfortunately, is manual operations. As unpopular as that answer might be, but today, if I'm opening a warehouse, it's just easy for me to open that warehouse, throw in people, and get things going. I don't have to worry about data. I don't worry about integration, permits, nothing. I think a lot of ecosystem has to evolve to making that simpler. But from what I can only control what I can control. So what we are doing at Addverb is we're trying to limit the number of components that go into any solutions, right? So if you're trying to build a goods to person system, how can we get to a stage where you just have three to five components to make it all happen? Because that becomes a truly scalable system. So if you put in more and more hardware components to that solution, I think it becomes more and more complex, which then does not help you scale that well. Scale or move or adapt. So just limiting the number of hardware I think is the answer. Again, we have a long way to go, but I think that's the philosophy with which we are looking at it to help scaling.
Yeah, for us, if someone's not ready yet for wearables, smart glasses or something like that, depending on their workforce or depending on where they are technically, we can slot in on the software side actually and put things on handheld scanners that would help you with your workflow. And so that's part of our Vuzix Solutions under our Vuzix Solutions banner. So we're not just devices, but we're also the software, and we can support anywhere along that journey.
And then from packaging, we're really what everyone wets their beak on from an automation perspective. Do you want a stretch wrapper? Cool. Do you want a tape machine? Awesome. Can you handle the technology behind some type of auto bagging system that costs $30,000? Sure, but we're always kind of the first entry level automation that's adopted in a really new, fresh warehouse. So has its pros and cons for sure from a business perspective, but then to Brian's point, we want to look down the road. What do you think your throughput's going to be in 3 years in case you're going to spend a large sum of money on a piece of capital equipment? We have to make sure it's going to fit your roadmap down the road rather than just, something that will fix your problem for right now but not work in a couple months.
Thank you.
Excellent, thank you. Ankush, did you have something as well?
Well, first, thank you. I think it's a wonderful, great panel, great perspective, great insight. Thank you all for being here. I think you make the event so much more better for us and our customers. My question's got nothing to do about the industry. It's to do about Element Logic. And you all have worked with us. And, we're on this mission to build a culture around continuous improvement. So there's one advice you would give us as Element Logic, each one of you. What can we do better? What can we do better in the industry? What can we do better to serve our customers? What would you tell us?
That's a tough one.
I'll take the easy way out. I would just say, remain flexible, right? So working with Element and formerly mainly working with Abco is the flexibility and this kind of the breadth of solutions that you have and are able to offer to the customers that we introduce you to. That's been the best part of working with everyone from an integration standpoint on your side. So maintain that flexibility, maintain the wide range of solutions that you have, and it's awesome.
Yeah, the collaboration. I've worked with a few of the team in the past, obviously with Abco. The collaboration is key. So continue to build off of that and collaborate with the partners to achieve mutual success. I think that's key.
I'll just say, I think education, I think you guys are in the forefront of talking to a lot of different customers, talking about different use cases. I think the biggest thing for me is I think there's more than one way to go about solving a problem. So I think it's important to educate your clients, your end users about all the options that are out there in the market to solve a problem. And I think just kind of helping them through the pros and cons of each. I think that's what you guys do best, and just, I guess, continue doing that, because I think that'll only grow this industry in the direction it needs to be growing. So
I get to take the really easy way out because I'm going to say everything they said. I haven't had a chance to work with you guys yet, but ask me that next year.
I think he wants an invitation back next year. All right, we've got time for one more question. Anyone have anything?
Sure, I'll go.
Okay, Tom?
I heard a lot about upskilling and change management. What advice would you give to companies that are new to the automation journey, that are just beginning to prepare to upskill their workforce and to manage that change throughout the process?
I think just keeping your, the employees that are on the ground in the center of everything. They should be part of design discussions. They should be part of investment discussions. Even though you might think, what value would that person add? I think keeping them involved will go a long way in easing the change management. I think I've oftentimes been in organizations where, the C-suite makes decisions, but the people who are actually implementing it do not. And so there's always this sort of, I never asked for it, I got it, and so I've got to live with it attitude, which I think needs to change. So I think involving different people, different aspects of your organization, ID, operations, sales, for example. I'm a big fan of a supply chain company bringing the sales team into this, because they are the one who's representing you as a brand, and oftentimes they don't know why they're automating it. But I think if they are also involved in it, I think everyone's kind of party to this vision that the CEO has set for this automation, and I think the change management becomes a lot more easier. So just involving people much ahead of time rather than involving too late would be my 2 cents on that.
Yeah, and during implementation and deployment, encouraging those individuals to not hold back, really establish a good, honest line of communication so that that initial go live is addressing all of the problems, because they probably weren't involved in the decision. So they need to put on the table all of the challenges they have. You might not solve them all, but having them out there, especially for a projects team, it allows a better, more honest deployment where you can say, yeah, we're going to achieve these goals, but these are off the table, and the expectations are set, and you get a better adoption after go live.
I hate that it keeps going down the line when the robot guy and the software guy say it. It's already been said. It kind of keeps flowing down. It's been said. You guys did a good job.
I'll just add from our side, one of the things we kept hearing today from people coming through the booth was, hey, do you do a training mode? And so we do some of that, but we're going to expand that, how we're deploying our smart glasses and the software. So I think it applies to any automation. So you're going to have people that get it immediately, and then they're going to use the automation or use the wearables or whatever, or the software. And then you're going to have other people that you want to bring along. So just keep that in mind, have a training mode and let people ramp up. And I think that'll be very successful.
All right. Well, thank you all for being here today, and thank you to the audience for being here and asking amazing questions.
I hope I don't see you for 6 months.
That's it. I'll see you in Vegas.